I just want to say to everyone, thank you very much for joining us on the first Zestful panel. We're very excited to launch our first panel discussion with the big question, should restaurants have to cater to people with food allergy folks, or how do we navigate that world? And we have four really cool guests with us with four different impressions. And I think just to start off, just why is this question so interesting right now? It's interesting right now because we've spent a whole year not having to dine out as food allergy folks, which was lovely in one respect, but it also made us go into a safe bubble. And now that the safe bubble is starting to open up, the question is, are we ready to go to restaurants, and are restaurants ready to cater for us? And that question comes up again because we've seen in the UK, a lot of restaurants are putting out signs that are basically saying food allergy folks are not welcome. And this is a weird place for us to start navigating because before the pandemic, we never had that clear, outright sign saying, sorry, not for you. So let's start that discussion. Before we launch into all of the juicy details, let's find out who we've got with us. So I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit on where you stand with this question. Should restaurants cater to people with food allergies? So let's jump off. We'll start with Nick. Welcome, Nick.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you. So I'm Nick Liu. I own a restaurant in Toronto called DaiLo, and we cater to all allergies. We have backup sauces, backup everything. I train my staff to constantly ask questions. One question always leads to another question to get to the right information that we need to make the diner's experience the best it possibly can, whether they have allergies, dietary restrictions, or whatever it may be.
Glad to be here. My name is Kyle Dine. I have allergies myself to peanut, tree nut, egg, seafood, and mustard. A lot of people know me because I do educational assemblies at schools across North America with music and puppets. Not doing any music today, though, no singing, but I'm also the founder of Equal Eats, where I make dietary cards for people with food allergies to help them communicate their allergies all across the world and at home. And my stance on this question, as someone with allergies, yes, I do think restaurants should cater, but do they have to? I think have to is the key phrase there. And I think if the restaurants are open to learning and open to caring, and I think there's absolutely a way that they can do it, but they have to be open to it to make it effective, so that they can actually follow through with it.
I'm Gail Brionieri. I'm founder of Allergy Force, which is a food allergy management app. And I'm the parent of a son who was diagnosed in 1998 with a ton of food allergies. He's now in his 20s. He still has about 5 that he lives with. Peanut and egg are anaphylactic. And our business, or the Allergy Force app, was really inspired by his 20-year journey because we weren't people or parents that like to stay home. So we did travel, and he did go to camp, and he did go to college, and, he learned how to navigate with that. My stand on the restaurant question is that kind of in Kyle's camp, I don't think they should be forced or mandated or required to cater. There's a lot of business reasons why they should want to accommodate, since food allergy folks rarely dine alone, and they spend a lot of money, and if they have a good experience, they come back. They can be very loyal, but I don't think they should be forced to cater to people with food allergies. I think it's sort of a meeting of the minds. There needs to be transparency and collaboration between the diner and the kitchen, the restaurant, to try to make things work. And there are ways that you can perhaps up their education or their knowledge base, but I don't think forcing them to accommodate is the right approach.
I'm Lindiwe. I have a lot of allergies, anaphylactic to peanuts, tree nuts, sesame, lentils, chickpeas, peas, shellfish, and horses. And I have environmental allergies, eczema, and asthma and things like that. I founded a blog called the Allergy Table, which was due to feeling excluded my whole life, not being able to sit at a table where everyone else gets to eat and always eating solo, which is why I do have an emotional connection to eating out. I never used to be social when it came to food. You know, the signs that Courtney has mentioned about, you know, restaurants in England saying that you can't eat here at the beginning of even going in, I went in and they said no. Sometimes I couldn't even sit down with my friends and not eat. And so I think that we have made a lot of strides in the now, but I do think that there's so much to work on. The have thing is true. Like, I think maybe you shouldn't have to accommodate, but I think saying you can't even not even have a conversation with the staff already, I think excludes a lot of children, young adults, and their families. And I think it's not fair. You know, now I feel fine to not eat at a restaurant, but when I was a kid, it was really hard for me. And so I think it shouldn't be a case of we're not catering for you. I think the conversation always needs to be had.
Great, thank you. And I think that really appropriately launches us into our first question, which we're gonna ask our chef and our non-allergy person. Welcome. You might feel like you don't have an allergy.
Wait a minute.
Welcome at our table.
I feel like I'm alone on this. Although I am in your camp, and I am with you guys. It's you know, it's something that we do actually really strive hard to get our information out and actually train the staff quite well in having the conversation, which is the most important part.
And just for our perspective, when is it appropriate for a restaurant to say no to someone who has food allergies? When would it drive you to say, I'm sorry, but today I can't accommodate you, just so that the people with food allergies understand what you're going through as someone in a kitchen?
Well, we're in the hospitality industry, so you know, we never say no. We will accommodate. You know, there are some things that just can't be done, and we'll have those conversations. You know, I mean, I think most people with allergies are very understanding about, you know, like what they can and cannot have. You know, there's different preparations before it hits a plate that sometimes, you know, things just can't be removed. We do try our best to have, you know, non-gluten, non-nuts, very kind of like baseline allergenic elements of different sauces that are very similar to some of the sauces that we use. You know, it's an Asian restaurant that I own, more of like a new Asian cuisine, not kind of classic. So we use a lot of soy, but the soy that we use is non-gluten soy. And you know, like it's really about the conversation. So we never say no to somebody. My server would always go to the table, have the conversation. You know, the first question we ask is, do you have any food allergies or any dietary restrictions? If they say yes, the conversation goes on even more. The second question is, well, what's the food allergy? And what's the degree of the allergy? Is it a contact allergy? And then once you have this information, you can start building. We have some very serious allergies that are very tough for us. I guess like onions and allergies to onions, garlic, and those type. What's it, lily? It's a lily allergy. Those are tough because, you know, most of the things that we do cook do have onions and garlic. So, I mean, we can create things on the spot. We're chefs, we're talented, we have things in our kitchen, and it's very easy once you put your mindset to it to create something. I think a lot of restaurants feel that it's an inconvenience, but I think if they get their mindset off of the inconvenience part, right, and just be part of the hospitality that you're into, right? It's why we have a restaurant. It's why we opened our business, is to be hospitable to everybody. It becomes very easy to accommodate other people and with allergies. It's, it really becomes a non-issue when you kind of open your mind up to it's not an inconvenience. It's, just an accommodation.
Those are beautiful words. I think all four of us were like, thank you. Thank you for saying that. And on that note, Kyle, I'm curious to know, on our side, what is the customer's responsibility for dining out, and how do we accurately communicate our dietary restrictions and needs with a restaurant? So what does the conversation have to look like on our end?
Yeah, and I just want to say I wish all chefs were like you, Nick. That's just so refreshing, that attitude, and you know, it's to hear how much you've taken that on and made it normal practice to accommodate, and that, you know, when you do have that openness, it's fantastic to learn and keep developing your procedures. Awesome. And I think from our side as a customer, we need to meet you halfway, because, you know, you are in the hospitality industry. You do want to accommodate you. This is a business. But we need to make it easier for you. And you are obviously not a mind reader to know all of my allergies. And if they're allergies, are they intolerances? Is it celiac disease? Is it a diet? So I think for us, it is a shared responsibility on both sides. And it's almost like this dance that we have with each other. And we're in an age still where there's really not a defined lead in that dance. It's not doing a professional waltz yet with both sides. It's more of a high school dance of, all right, is the waiter prompting us? Are we disclosing right off the gate? But, you know, for the restaurant, if they have that in place, fantastic. But most places are not there yet. So I think for us as customers, I'd say there's three really important things to remember to help a restaurant out with our allergies and restrictions. One being just being kind. And I think in this day and age right now, with restaurants coming back open, that's really important to be mindful that they might be understaffed. They might be a little bit rusty just with procedures. And they might not just be experienced, a 16-year-old server with food allergies in general, or dealing with mustard allergy, or, you know, whatever the combinations are. So to be mindful to work with them and not against them, not to come in with that attitude of, what do you mean you don't know how to deal with this allergy? But, you know, I deal with this every day, and I can give you some helpful tips of what food I usually eat. To try to meet halfway goes a long way in getting them trying to work with you. So being kind is one. I'd also say just being transparent is really important. And I deal with a lot of customers that want to, they're not sure which card to create for themselves. They have a lactose intolerance and they're asking me, should I get a milk allergy card? And I say, no, you should get a lactose intolerance card and call a spade, because as you said, Nick, you have procedures for different restrictions. So that's what we're really trying to do, is get people to call the right thing. So you have that correct information, and you can make correct decisions based on that. So that's also very important. And it just builds that relationship of trust between the two sides. And then thirdly, I'd say just being critical is really important, because as much as we want to trust the restaurants fully, I think we all have a little bit of trust issues from the customer side. So it's still, you know, asking those critical questions. Is there a cross-contact procedure? When was the last time you updated your allergy matrix? And even when you receive your food, to be critical to make sure, you know, you got the right plate, because there is a full chain that's happening with a meal, and you just have to still kind of be on guard and you know, still have some trust, but also be critical. So I would say, you know, to recap, just be kind, be transparent, and be critical. And those three things can carry you a long way to getting a safe meal.
I think that that's really helpful for everyone to just take a page out of that next time we go to a restaurant. I'm going to pivot the conversation slightly, just asking Gail, which will be interesting for us to hear another perspective in terms of dining out with food allergies, is, Gail, as an allergy parent, how would you respond if a restaurant couldn't accommodate you safely? Because I know that sometimes a conversation, when it's an allergy child and a parent, the conversation can become very overwhelming for the waiter, because there's a lot of voices talking, and you want to respect your child's emotional state, and you also want to make sure that they're safe. And sometimes all of that emotion can get transferred onto the waiter, and then it's easier to just say, I feel safer if we just give them some white rice or something. And the child is obviously not going to be happy by the white rice, and the parent isn't either. So how do you navigate that as an allergy parent in terms of that conversation? And how would you feel if a restaurant responded, we can only give you a plain plate of carbs?
Yeah, I mean, we've had good experiences and disappointing experiences over the years. I think we've always approached dining out, since we enjoy it as a family, as with a very can-do spirit, like we can figure this out together, we can find a workaround. But we do try to do due diligence before we go to a restaurant if we're kind of at home. Sometimes it's, make a phone call, like walk by, at a quiet time, see if you can talk to a manager. But sometimes, like if we're traveling or on the road, it's harder to do that upfront due diligence. So we might be kind of troubleshooting or problem solving or kind of dealing with it on the fly. And, I think to Kyle's point, you try to be kind, you try to be respectful, try to be transparent. I mean, I think over the years, we did get a bit of a litany of, this sort of the script that we would go through on behalf of our child when he was a lot younger. And you could see if the eyes glazed over or if they weren't quite getting it, that they, some of the specifics that I'm not feeling really good about this. And we'd run across restaurants that would be willing to try to work with you. And we would try to, usually we could pinpoint something on a menu that we knew enough about it that we felt like this could be a go if they can avoid cross contact and things. So we tried to keep the conversation very positive. I'd say over the years, it was probably a rare experience for us to run into a restaurant that said, no way, we can't serve you. We have nothing here for you. But it did happen. I mean, we've been seated as a family. I have 3 children. So my oldest son is the only child with food allergies in the family. He's not so much a child anymore as a young adult, but he, we have been turned away. And if we felt uncomfortable, like the glazed look on the server's face, or they weren't really getting it, we have walked out. Or if they've told us they can't serve us, we have left and found another option. Even if the option, late at night in Massachusetts with maybe some Oreos and some Cheez-Its on the road while we were trying to get to the ski slope. So, but I'd say more often than not, we were able to find a workaround. But I think it takes 2 sides conversing, 2 sides with a willingness to come together. And you are taking a risk, right? I mean, you are accepting some risk as a diner, that they get it right. I mean, we had quite a number of food allergies when he was little, but now, he has fewer to manage. But you do go into a restaurant situation and knowing that you're accepting some risk. And we have accepted risk, and it's worked out horribly for us, landing in the ER at night because a server missed something on an ingredients label. So you win some, you lose some, you get smarter, but you keep trying, I think, because dining out is lovely to share time with friends and, have an experience just to spend time around the table away from home.
That brings up this word that I've heard a lot of, which is like us and the restaurants working together and whether restaurants are willing to work with us. So I'm going to ask this question to both Nick and Kyle, and maybe I'll get Nick to go first. Is it realistic for restaurants to go through some sort of training for food allergies? What is a food allergy versus an intolerance? How do you prepare for food allergies? Is it realistic to get every restaurant to go through some sort of accreditation or training? And what do we feel like the barrier to entry is for restaurants to all want to willingly take this on?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's realistic. We've done training. We do training on our own. We also use Fate Initiative in Toronto. It's run by a friend of ours, Joey Salamenko, and he actually had his sister pass away from an allergy, from actually a big box store, which wasn't labeling some of the things properly. So I think it's really just, trying to change, the personal opinion about, like the owners of the restaurant. It's because it's, again, like when I don't know where it came from, but, in the restaurant industry, when you get an allergy, back even when I was working before, I kind of came up to this, solution where it's we're in the hospitality industry, we cater to everybody, it's like we're all really great cooks. We can do whatever we want. We have product here. If we need to create something on the spot really quickly for somebody, we can do that, right? So I do think the training, for employees is really important. I think knowledge is key. It makes you not only a better restaurant, but it also makes you, a better business person. To be able to, maneuver around, different elements and different problems. And in the restaurant industry, there's so many different problems that kind of arise, to take something that, everyone finds in the restaurant industry a problem and make it, now a solution, create something that, for my restaurant and my experience is just, it's a lot more liberating and easy, because if you're not prepared for it, it becomes a very hard issue to deal with, like, especially on the fly. If you're already prepared and your restaurant has a mandate for these things, it becomes very easy, right? And, as a business, you don't want to say no to anybody. And especially, like during the pandemic, if you can, if you can invite as many guests as possible, it can really help you through a pandemic, to have that business.
And just from my perspective, yeah, I agree. I think training is really vital. It's very important. I think there's some barriers to it right now, which we're actually looking at Equal Eats, of how can we affect change on the other side and provide better training, because face-to-face is fantastic and there's some wonderful options out there. But in terms of scaling that to different cities, different locations, different cuisines, I think that needs to be really looked at, because right now there's very specific training for, let's say, food allergy, and some for celiac and some for other diets. And there's not too many comprehensive solutions out there, which is important. And I think a lot of the training that I've done is very general. So it's kind of teaching the 17-year-old server about cross-contact issues in the kitchen versus what is the demeanor you should have with the customer. How do you prompt them to tell you about their restrictions? What's your role in that chain, that process? And I think just to look at training in a different lens of what's most effective in this day and age, how do we get people engaged with it? How do we make it affordable, accessible, easy, gamified, you name it? I think it's something that we really need to do a better job at. So we can both kind of have this expectation that, that servers know their process, chefs know their process, and so on. So I think there's work to be done in that side, but I think it's so important that we keep pushing towards that solution.
And I know that Lindiwe just recently went through training, so I'm going to throw it to Lindiwe. You recently went through a whole training process before you began your new job. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it impacts the way that you work?
Yeah, I've taken training before at a pub I used to work at 6 years ago, and it was atrocious, to say the least. It was a click-through process, like not even any quizzes, not even understanding, just click through, get the certification. And, I talked to the other staff members and they were like, oh yeah, like it wasn't even a thing. So there wasn't much of a culture in trying to have the managers say, like, what did you learn? Are you still using it? There wasn't any of that dialogue between the higher ups and the staff members, and especially staff in pubs and restaurants constantly are going in and out. So it's really hard to maintain that level of like just the same thought process for everybody, so whoever you get will change your experience. And I've seen that as a customer and as a staff member. So now I've gone to another pub, and it's a massive chain all around the world. And I did their training, and I was shocked at how great it was. Generally, I thought it was going to be the cookie cutter that I had before, and it was really great. They did discuss, the difference between allergies, intolerance, anaphylaxis. They discussed all of the things that we talk about in the allergy community, different ways that you can see a reaction happening as a staff member and how you can deal with it and what to do. And I was actually quite shocked. I mean, I knew all of it, but I was shocked at how detailed it was. There's still things that, like, it still was, because it's online, it still was like a click through. You did do a quiz, but you can do it as many times as possible. things like that, you know, and there wasn't anything really that the other staff members were saying to us. But there are things, you know, when they'd come back and go, do we have any gluten-free beer? And as I'm older now and I'm more experienced, I now say, are they a celiac or are they gluten-free? Like, which one did you ask them? And so I do that to every, and I'm not a manager, but I do that to every person that comes in, just so that they need to get that sense of, they need to ask those questions. Like Nick was saying, they need to ask these questions straight away, because if they don't, that's a completely different experience, you know? And yeah, so like the allergy training was really great and very informative, but I think it's really important that the managers and, you know, even the culture of the people who own the restaurants and the pubs just push through like they do with COVID. Like right now, we're so intense on getting things clean and, you know, making sure that we're following those restrictions, but people aren't talking about allergies. And the fact is that a lot of us aren't coming to restaurants because we are afraid. So it's not really in the forefront of people's minds, because when it does happen, which is very rare, they're shocked, because it doesn't happen that often. And so they believe that just people just don't go out with allergies. And it's like, who's the chicken and the egg? Are we just going to make it more exciting for people to come out, or are people going to not come out because they're terrified? Like who does the first initiation, you know? Yeah, so the training has gotten better, but I think the enforcement of it still needs some help.
How do you think, Lindiwe, we could, as a food allergy community, work with restaurants to help create that positive dialogue and to say you are, unless we put up a sign that says you're not welcome, how do we get the food allergy community to engage with restaurants and get them to say, oh, actually, you are welcome to eat with me. Please dine with us.
Yeah, I mean, that is hard. Like I said, it's a bit of a chicken and the egg situation, because we unfortunately need to go out to eat in order for people to cater for us, you know? But I also think that restaurants need to also advertise that they are willing to cater for us, because then we won't have to think about where to go, because we will go to places that do cater for us, and we will probably go out more often if they are saying, yeah, we do cater for you. Everyone's welcome. If you want to come, we will cater for you. Maybe just call us a day beforehand, tell us your allergies, you know, like things, if they can just share with us. Like I have shared just recently of a restaurant that I went to that I hadn't been out to in over a year, and I went and I called them beforehand. I told them exactly what I wanted to eat, starter, main, dessert, and I said my allergies, and I said I'd be there at this time. I had a reservation, and I went there, and they were amazing and they were so great. But I also then championed them after. I thanked every person that helped me. I said, please thank the chef. This is really important. Like, you guys don't know how hard it is to eat out, and the fact that you are doing this for me means that other people who I talk to will feel comfortable to come to you. And please tell any other staff member that this is how you should behave to people with allergies if they aren't behaving that way. And I think we have to go out, but we also have to make them realize, like, if you do cater for us, that's such a big deal. And thank you, because not everybody does that. And yeah, I just think championing people who are great, we just put the focus and the mindset of to the places that do care about us, rather than focusing on the people who don't. And those people should, you know, not put a stop at us just before we go in, like, obviously. But I think, like we said, I don't think that anyone has to cater for us, but I think that we should highlight the people who do, because those are the people who will help us feel more comfortable to go out.
Yeah, very true. And now I'm going to ask Nick. So it's interesting because I've heard all of these conversations about dietary, understanding allergy intolerance and all of these different needs. And I'm just curious, as someone with food allergies, have all of the additional dietary restrictions that have come up in this world, all these new diets that people are on, has that hindered, do you think, a restaurant's willingness to cater to food allergies because they aren't sure if it's an actual allergy
Yeah,
or
this
someone's
is actually a really
ego?
good question because you know, we get a lot of people that lie, right? And they tell us that they have allergies, and this is, I mean, it's a huge annoyance, you know, because we have people that say, okay, well, you know, I'm allergic to this, I'm allergic to that, and you know, like we'll create a menu. And they'll be like, oh, you know, like I kind of want to, I want this, like I'd like this dish. Can it be done without that? And we're like, well, no, I actually can't. It's actually inside the dish or in the sauce already. And they'll be like, oh, I'm okay with a little bit, right? And it's like, it really makes it makes it a really difficult job for us to kind of create a proper menu for somebody, right? When we've already created something, and then now it's like, oh, now they can have some of this, and it's like, oh, okay, so now we're doing a tasting menu, and now they can have like little bits of this and little bits of that, right? A thing that I'm very surprised that that you mentioned that um, we don't actually get a ton of people call ahead of time that have allergies. And that would really help us out, especially if people, you know, like are looking to have like the full dining experience. You know, we could create a tasting menu if like we knew actually a few days ahead of time that they were coming. A lot of times we get people that come, you know, we ask our questions and then we find out they have allergies. So, I mean, I think for the population of people with allergies that are watching right now, it would be a really great idea to call the restaurant before or when you make your reservation, instead of, you know, you have open table and you're doing it all online, to actually call the restaurant and have a conversation before you come. It would actually make your experience a lot better. And I think even like the restaurants that do have an issue with doing allergies, it would make it a lot easier for them to deal with it, you know, a couple days beforehand before you get to the restaurant. Just for, you know, just for a better dining experience for everyone all around. But yes, but what you're talking about, you know, with all these dietary restrictions and all these different diets now, I think it's not a hindrance, but you know, it's a huge annoyance. And that I think that people that are, you know, experimenting with like different type of diets need to be very, very honest about what they're doing instead of like treating it like they have an allergy, because that makes the restaurant's job very, very difficult. And then it also makes us not trust people with actual allergies, right? And it's like, okay, you know, but it does also make us do our best to ask as many questions and make the dialogue, you know, what it needs to be to get the right answers.
That's really interesting that people don't call ahead or warn the restaurant. I feel like I refuse to eat somewhere unless I've like warned them 3 times that I'm coming.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
guess what? I'm gonna come.
we do get, I mean, we do get a lot of people that do call, but the majority of people probably don't.
And that makes me think of something that Gail talked about, and I'd love to throw it at you, Gail. You talked about vetting restaurants ahead of time. Can you tell us a little bit about how that looks, just also for a restaurant's perspective, to see what an allergy diner is looking at before they hopefully call them in the future, or at least consider walking through the front door?
Yeah, I mean, you go online and you see the menu. And well, even backing up, I mean, there's just certain types of restaurants we know are a no-go for our son. Like going out to breakfast at a diner is a no-go. There's just too much egg in the environment. And so we just wouldn't even try to go there. Or, you know, we're very leery of Thai food because of the prevalence of peanuts, and he's never eaten at a Chinese restaurant. So he's going to be living close to Toronto. So he may be headed your way, Nick. But, you know, so there's certain restaurants we don't venture towards, and then you go online and you look at the menu, and, you know, you have, I guess from our perspective, we've delved into kind of how recipes and what's behind the food preparation and what are likely ingredients. So the ones that are likely pop out pretty well. Like I know we've done really well with also buco. You know, they usually don't have nuts in it, and they usually aren't prepared with egg, and they're usually, cooked in a way that they're a little bit separate from other foods. So we would try to look at the menu, target a few things, and then have a conversation with the restaurant about the preparation. I mean, you can have a big full conversation about how bacon's prepared in a restaurant. Is it done on the griddle? Is it done in the oven where it could be secure and not have eggs flying onto it? So I think we've educated ourselves about to the best we could as non-hospitality industry people as to how kitchens work within a restaurant. So we have some feeling for how things work, and so we steer clear of things that we don't like. The grill, for example, too many things going on the grill that could have a sauce or something that would be problematic. So we choose carefully. We study the menus online, and we ask a lot of questions of the restaurant about their processes to see if it'll work. And sometimes they can accommodate, sometimes they can work with us, and sometimes they can't, and that's okay. So we try to do our due diligence, because I think it's a two-way street. You just have to bend a little bit, but first and foremost is you have to keep your child, you have to keep yourself safe, right? Or it's a non-starter. So, and a lot of that is all geared around like calm, kind, respectful communication, being really open.
Yes, don't get emotional. don't get angry at the waiter. I have one more kind of throwing a new question at you all that I did not prepare you for before we close out, and I'm going to ask Kyle to respond and then maybe Nick to respond after, and it's about liability. So the question is, when we have a food allergy card, does that mean that we're now making the restaurant liable for our allergies? Because I know that I've had certain situations where they didn't necessarily want to cater to me because they didn't want to be liable if I did have an allergic reaction, and that I had to say that I was liable and that I understood that there could be cross contact. And I know that in the UK, all of a sudden, people are being asked to sign waivers saying that they're taking a risk to dine at this restaurant. So Kyle, does using a card make someone start that dialogue of liability?
I think there's no difference between using a card and actually just vocalizing verbally your allergies. It's just a different method of communication. So I think it's a more effective one. But the fact is, when you actually tell someone about your allergies, whether it's on a card or I'm just telling you, you've shifted the duty of care to the restaurant, where they now know, they're aware, and they have to do the best of their ability to accommodate you. And that comes down to the question then of should they? And that's where we see refusal. But in terms of using a card or verbalizing your allergies, you're doing an effective job at presenting the right information. You're doing your responsibility as a customer. So I personally love the card because I have multiple allergies, and I've seen servers not write them all down or just try to memorize my 6 allergens, and I know they won't. And I know there's broken telephone in a kitchen where the message doesn't get to the right person. So I'm actually trying to help them lower their liability by making something they can pass around to get the correct message. So no, I think given the choice, disclose or not disclose, always disclose.
I think when you're talking about liability, that becomes a sensitive subject because, I mean, it's, I believe there's responsibility on the restaurant side, but when you talk about liability, you can really limit yourself as with someone with an allergy, to having this kind of feeling where like allergies aren't welcome. It's like if we're going to be, if you're going to sue us, if we're going to be liable, right? If we're 100% responsible for your lives, and and we do feel that way, but the liability part, right, will kind of shed a lot of restaurants to put up these signs and be like, okay, we don't want to have the issues, we don't want to have the problems. And I guarantee you, like when any restaurant knows your dietary restrictions or allergies, right, they will be doing their 100% best to make sure that whatever those issues are, or whatever those allergies are, right? They get dealt with in a proper manner and a clean and sanitized manner. But there's, there's 100% human error. And when you're dealing with the kitchen of, like 12 people, that's a lot of different hands that you don't have control of. So, I think, as a restaurant owner, I think to put the liability on the restaurant is unfair. We as a restaurant, and we as, as a hospitality industry, will always do the best we possibly can. And it'll be 100%, the one thing that is on our mind that one time, or sorry, that time that we do have the allergies, right? We separate all the tables, and like when we're doing that table, right, we do that table on its own. So I mean, it's I don't know if you guys agree or not, but I think it's a very dangerous thing to put the liability on the restaurant, especially for as you say, there's a lot of restaurants that aren't, as advanced as my restaurant, with taking care of allergies. I think it'll probably, if a lot of restaurants feel that there's too much liability, they will put these signs up, and it'll limit your chances for experiences.
And just to follow up on that quickly, Tracy Stuckrath noted it in the chat, the difference between liability and negligence. And from the cases I've seen where actually something came out of it in terms of a legal battle, it was usually due to gross negligence. It was just not following the procedure. It was, I have this allergy, can you check? And it wasn't checked. It just didn't, right. There wasn't that care at all. So, it's doing your duty of care, which is that reasonable accommodation. But I'm not a lawyer, but these are just helpful hints but I agree fully, Nick.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. And I feel like you said that it's unfair for us as allergy diners to put all of the responsibility on the kitchen. And I think the big takeaway for me has been that it needs to be a two-way conversation. Absolutely. And that we need to be comfortable talking to each other and being, are you comfortable feeding me? And am I comfortable eating from your kitchen, knowing what is happening in the back and knowing the steps that you're going to take from me? So it really is, as Kyle said it beautifully, a dance. Let's try and make it the most beautiful dance possible instead of some awkward, touching in weird places dance. So I just want to say thank you everyone so much for this. I feel like I have a paper full of questions, but to respect everyone's time, we're just going to have some closing words from all of our guests. And it's all coming back to this whole, it's been a year of weird dining out. It's been a year of maybe some takeout, maybe some just cooking at home. So the question I'm going to throw at everyone is, has the pandemic changed things for diners, and how will it affect patrons who have food allergies? So either from your personal opinion or from what you think globally as our community. And I'll get Nick to start us off.
I don't think it's going to change people's opinion about dining, and allergies. It's, I think people are ready to get out, and, especially, it doesn't matter if you have allergies or not, you guys will find where you guys want to go eat, and it's, I think it's an exciting time. So, please come by the restaurant.
We will. Like, there's two of us who either live in Toronto or live close enough. Just saying. Kyle?
Yeah, I think this, what a year for one, but I think for a lot of us, we really appreciated our time more and what we do with it and how we spend it. And I think what we tolerate is now different. And moving forward, I would, personally, I don't want to deal with these negative experiences at restaurants. I don't want to waste my time. Kyle's learned to cook this year. So all of a sudden, I have other options. And I think that if anything has changed in terms of being subject to random restaurants, we're going to be a lot more selective to the places that do a great job catering for us, and more selective where we want to support businesses moving forward. So I think that not much has changed yet, but I think going forward, people are going to be a little bit more selective and appreciative.
Great. Yeah. And by the way, food allergy folks are extremely loyal, like ridiculously loyal. Just saying. Gail?
Yeah, and they come with friends too, right? So they don't eat alone. Yeah, I do think the pandemic kind of everybody stayed close to home. I mean, I think for people with food allergies, you were in your bubble, right? I mean, a lot of family time. I mean, there were some blessings within the pandemic in terms of pulling families together. It was really wonderful to have a full table every night with all the kids home and everything. So I think that bubble, which was very comfortable, also maybe some skills got rusty a little bit, that willingness to self-advocate or speak up maybe kind of languished from disuse a little. And, I think on the restaurant side, just from an outside observer, they had lower traffic. Some restaurants even shut down for a while. It's been, coming back online fully. I know here in the US, I've talked to restaurants we do frequent, and they've had trouble with staffing. A lot of people didn't want to come back into some of the jobs, so there was turnover and they were running short-staffed. And so I think, they're out of practice too, accommodating needs, and they're dealing with, new staff, new employees, and everything to backfill the people that that did not return. So I think it's like a re-education, a re-entry process, and it'll take some time. People need to leave the bubble, relearn how to speak up for themselves, and restaurants need more practice as traffic increases and their employee base stabilizes a bit. That's my thought.
That's really good. Thank you, Gail. It's true. I am not sure how to talk about food allergies at the moment. I'm like, oh, wait, I forget half of them because I haven't told anyone in a year. And Lindiwe?
I mean, in England, it's definitely changed. The pandemic has changed completely. Restaurants, people, the way people live their life right now. We've been in and out all year, so people are just off kilter a little bit. I think that the main thing for me, I'm going to do it. It's hard, and I don't think that it's going to be easy for anyone, but we have to get out there and talk about it, because it's not that everybody's going to have to cater for us. But if we keep having that conversation over and over again, calling people up saying, can you cater for us? Can you cater for us? Can you cater for us? Then they're like, oh, people do want to come out. People with allergies do want to eat out. And the fact is, if there's more people asking, there's going to be more people catering. And it sucks because I don't want to have any more bad experiences, but I've had more, that's terrible English, more better experiences than I have had worse experiences in my whole life. But sometimes we really do focus on the worst because it's our life. It's our life that is on the line, right? But I think if we really do make an effort to talk about it, if we can, or parents to talk about it, parents to ask around, children go out there without their friends, just go out to restaurants saying, hey, my friends might come here, after school, can you cater for me so that I don't have to worry about talking about my allergies when my friends are around? And if they say yeah, then it's like, okay, cool, what can I eat so that I don't have to talk about it around my friends, or things like that. Just keep the conversation going, because if we just keep the conversation going, they won't forget us and they're going to cater for us. But it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but we can do it, but we just need to keep going.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lindiwe. And thank you, everyone. I hope everyone feels a little bit more confident to maybe try dining out if you can find a good outdoor spot, and that this summer doesn't feel like it's just barbecues at home. So again, thank you everyone so much for joining us and for being on the first Zestful panel. We're very excited we're able to tackle this question, and I feel like we've just started the conversation, so let's continue it out in the real world. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone, and thank you so much again.